What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel, and welcome to another Week 3 game preview and prediction. Let's dive on into a top 25 matchup from Columbia, Missouri. It's the ACC versus the SEC, and we got a potential really interesting matchup coming up here. Boston College is rolling off the momentum of beating Florida State, but now they got to go up against one of the best teams in the nation, a top 10 team in the Missouri Tigers. This one should be really interesting from Columbia. It's the Eagles versus the Tigers, and we'll talk about everything you need to know for this matchup here in just a minute. But before we do that, you guys know I got to say thank you for all the love and support the channel has seen as of late. And if you're as big of a college football nerd as I am, then man, you got to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know whenever I post content this season, because we are posting a lot of it here on the channel. And hey, just thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this video, and please help support the channel in any way you can, whether that's watching more videos, continuing to like, comment, share, or anything else I have or haven't said that you'd be willing and able to do to help interact with the channel. It all helps us support it, so I really appreciate it. And if you want to support me outside of YouTube, you can go follow along my journey to be a sports media professional, look at some of the other field work I do, articles I write, podcasts, etc., etc. Please go give me a follow on Twitter or X, whatever it is you want to call it. It's at TailgateNate29, capital T, capital N, numbers 29 at the end of it. I would really appreciate a follow over there so you guys can follow along with what I do as a sports media student. I think I do some really, really cool stuff. Maybe you guys would be interested in some of it. So, hey, thank you for supporting me in literally any way that you can. And now let's dive on in to talking about this one right here. It's the Boston College Eagles facing off against the Missouri Tigers. How do we do preview and predictions around here? Well, I'm glad you asked. We go through some keys to the game when each team possesses the football. So for Boston, I guess first, we'll take a look at what happens when the Boston College offense is going to face off against the Tiger defense. I'll give you some keys, and then we'll flip it. We'll take a look at the Tiger offense versus the Eagle defense. And of course, at the end of the video, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you some final thoughts, what I think is going to happen in this game. And then we'll go ahead and give you my official prediction on the way I think this one is going to take place in Columbia. Early afternoon game taking place. Let's go ahead and dive on in to this SEC-ACC showdown. Again, first taking a look at what happens when the newly ranked Boston College Eagles have the football. And let me tell you, this has been a Boston College offense that has really impressed a lot of people so far this season, especially with the way they were able to handle Florida State. But this is as of right now, with the pace that they're on, they're going to prove to be one of the best rushing attacks in the entire country. After beating Florida State, they were able to carry that momentum forward, and they dismantled a Duquesne team. Now, we know Duquesne is an FCS program, but I do believe that they were the preseason favorite to win their respective conference in the FCS. Okay, so even though Boston College has 2 wins over 2 teams that are 0-2 right now, they are in the top 25, and it is because mainly of that rushing attack. They added Trayshawn Ward. Kai Robichaud has been really good. Richard is back there as well. All of those guys are over 100 yards, and we know their quarterback, Thomas Castellanos, he's fared pretty well throwing the football so far this season, 340 yards and 6 passing touchdowns. I'll talk more about that, his arm here in just a little bit. But we know he can also get outside of the pocket and run. 15 carries for 81 yards and a touchdown so far this season. In fact, the Eagles have 5 rushing touchdowns this year by 5 different players. And of course, Castellanos 6 passing touchdowns as well, of which I believe he had 4 of them in the previous game against Duquesne. But that really is my first key that I do want to talk about. And yes, I know I have a different key listed first, but let's go to that second key for just a second because I'm segueing into it perfectly here. Castellanos' arm is going to have to be a really, really big factor here in this game. We know Castellanos can get outside of the pocket and run, and we know he has a very talented group of running backs behind him that are going to be led by Trayshawn Ward and Kai Robichaud. Some former Power 5 transfers that played for other teams that ended up transitioning and transferring over to Boston College here. But Castellanos' arm is going to have to be a very, very big factor. Again, he's been efficient with it so far. He has 73% completion percentage, 340 yards and 6 touchdowns, as I mentioned earlier. But he's only thrown the ball 26 times this season, was only 9 of 10 in the previous game against Duquesne. Now, did they really need him to be all that flashy and throw 40 passes? No, the run game was able to control the clock against Florida State, and you didn't really need him to do much to beat a Duquesne team. But this is by far the biggest test that Boston College's offense is going to have to face this season. It's also the biggest test that the Tiger defense will have to face this season as well. And I mean, you take a look at those stats that are just right down there. Sorry, I'm going to have to like point here. There, there, there. There we go. Finally got it. They are one of two teams that have still not allowed a point this season, the other being Purdue, but Purdue has only played one football game against an FCS level school. Missouri was able to go shut out Murray State, and then most recently, they were able to shut out Buffalo. Now, both those teams don't have great offenses to begin with, but the Missouri defense doesn't seem to be missing a beat or missing Blake Baker really at all. The pass defense, oh my goodness, it's fantastic. The rush defense has been really good so far. Third down conversion is very impressive. They're forcing turnovers. They're getting off the field. They're not allowing anything. They're generating sacks. The Boston College offensive line is going to have a really big day here because, yes, Missouri lost a lot of talent on the defensive front from last season. They still have some really, really good pass rushers and some really good linebackers that, again, much like those defensive ends and everything else they possess, that can get back to the quarterback. And Boston College is a team that, despite all the success they've had on the ground this season, again, Castellanos has only dropped back to pass, 30 times this season, throwing the ball 26. He's been dropped back to pass, maybe 40 times this season. He's only thrown the ball 26 times. He's gotten sacked 3 times this season, and Boston College as an offensive line as a whole has allowed 4 sacks so far this season. That's something that has got to change here. Yes, the offensive line can do all at once and be able to push this run game forward and this run game to do some really good things. But like I talked about, right, Castellanos' arm, I think is going to have to be a really big factor here in this game. And with that, the offensive line is going to have to give him time to throw, going to have to give time for him to look for some of his wide receivers, including a guy that has just been spectacular for him so far in Lewis Bond. He's been absolutely sensational. He can continue to be in this game, and that's a guy that Castellanos is going to have to find. But with this Missouri defense that, again, by far the biggest offensive test that they will face, their defense has still been really, really good so far this season. So an interesting little way to look at that side of the ball. Let's take a look now and flip it to talk about what happens when Missouri has the football because, again, very similar story to the other side of the football. Yes, Boston College has been tested against Florida State, and I know Florida State hasn't fared too well this season, but that still, at the end of the day, guys, could prove to be a pretty solid Florida State team. And when you look at the end of the day, they do have a lot of very talented players on that team. So Boston College has been tested in that regard, and they were able to hold Florida State to only 13 points. They did not let Florida State control the pace. DJU, again, while he didn't have his best day, the Boston College defense was also able to really corral him. This is a step up, though. Boston College, this is going to be their best offense, probably that they're going to play all season, especially this very well might be the best quarterback wide receiver duo they play all season. It seems like every time I talk about Missouri, I talk about it, but I have to mention the Brady Cook to Luther Burden connection, right? And a pun absolutely intended here. I honestly didn't even realize I made it until I reread that first key myself. Burden will cook. The Brady Cook to Luther Burden thing is going to work out, especially because Boston College's strength on the defensive end so far this season has been defending that run. But is the run game going to be able to work for Missouri? We know they have some really good, really talented pieces back there. Again, Cody Schrader left this team last season. He went off to the NFL, 7th-round pick, undrafted again, I can't remember. But they went and got 2 really talented pieces from the portal in Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll. Both of those guys have had at least 18 carries for them so far this season. And you also have a guy by the name of Kawan Lacey as a freshman who's got some solid playing time as well. Again, it'll mainly be Noel and Carroll that play here for this team. But again, Brady Cook has just been sensational. Only 1 touchdown to 1 pick so far this season. The 1 touchdown did go to Luther Burden, but this wide receiver room is so much deeper than just Luther Burden. I know I said Burden is going to cook here. I do think that while he hasn't really needed to break out, he just hasn't had a big game yet. He didn't have a big game against Murray State, didn't have a big game against Buffalo. This is the spot where Luther Burden is going to break out, but that means that you also have to watch out for guys like Theo Weiss and Johnson and Mookie Cooper and all these other really talented wide receivers. And with the way that Boston College, yes, they fared very well defensively, but at least when you compare how the rush versus pass defense has fared for Boston College, the pass defense is definitely a whole lot weaker. Now, again, that being said, yes, you have to defend this Missouri passing attack, but defending this Missouri rushing attack is also going to be really, really challenging. They were able to hold Florida State, who, guys, I mean, come on, let's be honest. There are a lot of really good running backs back there, and I know people are making jokes about Florida State right now. At the end of the day, that's still a team that has a lot of very talented pieces on it, and at the end of the day, does have some really talented running backs that Boston College was able to pretty much shut down. But that's the thing that's going to need to be the key here. The Boston College defense needs to control the line of scrimmage as they were able to do against Florida State. They need to get this team off the field on third downs as well. They cannot let this Missouri offense continue to work the clock and continue to control the pace of play, much like Missouri's been able to do all season. I mean, hey, they've averaged almost 36 minutes per game here, which only leaves Boston College with 24. And for a team that likes to run the ball a whole lot more than they like to pass, you get down 2 scores, especially late in a game against the top 10 team on the road. It's going to be really hard for you to come back here and win this game. So get off the field quickly, win the third down battle, as they've been able to do all season long. Control that line of scrimmage. They've already forced 3 turnovers. They have 4 sacks, but the Missouri offense has not allowed a sack so far this season. But starting to sort of lean into my prediction here, especially on this side of the football, Missouri, I think, is way more talented than what Boston College possesses. And I'm not taking anything away from what Boston College has done so far this season. They have been a really, really good team to follow so far, and they really have put up some very impressive performances. But Missouri, even though this is going to be their biggest test of the season, have looked really, really good. And I mean, just from a pure talent standpoint, with all credit again to Castellanos and Robichaud and Ward, and Bond and everyone else on this Boston College team, especially defensively, I think Missouri is just simply more talented. That leads into my prediction a little bit here again. A top 25 matchup this week, 24 versus 6. Both these teams sitting at 2-0. Someone has to come away with a loss. Little bit of a later start time than what you see out of the noon time slot. It's a 12:45 kickoff Eastern Standard Time, and you can find this one on the SEC Network. Mizzou is the more than 2 touchdown favorite by 16.5 as of recording this video. And, well, guys, straight up, I'm taking Missouri to go ahead and win this game, and I do think that they dominate. I think that Missouri defense is going to show everybody that, yes, even though they've played Murray State, they've played Buffalo, that's the defense that you can expect out of Missouri this season. And I just think, again, going back to what I said just a little bit ago, I think Missouri is way more talented than what Boston College possesses. Boston College has a lot of really good pieces, a lot of really good players. Missouri is just simply more talented. It's why they're a top 10 team in the nation right now, and I think it's why they're going to win this football game. Again, as I mentioned earlier, Luther Burden has just simply yet to explode. He hasn't had that really big game to showcase, hey, I'm the best wide receiver in college football this season. Terrell McMillan has had it. Luther Burden has not. Those are probably the 2 guys you could argue, at least in my opinion, to be the best wide receiver in college football. I think Luther Burden is going to have himself a hell of a day here. I think the rushing attack is going to be able to work. And overall, I think this Missouri defense, again, as I said earlier, is going to prove that what it's shown so far is what it is. They're going to be able to limit Boston College, and I think Missouri controls the clock in this game as well. They win this one 38-16, but I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching this video, and remember to play hard but tailgate harder. We'll have a couple more preview predictions out for you tomorrow. Goodbye.